This week, President Trump nominated Dr. Neil Jacobson, an atmospheric scientist, to lead the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, better known as NOAA. In Trump's first term, Jacobs was the agency's acting leader during what turned into a political storm. Jacobs was reprimanded for ethics violations during what became known as Sharpie-Gate. National environmental correspondent David Schechter investigates what can happen when an administration politicizes science.
What is important about a hurricane warning?
People's lives are on the line.
In September of 2019, during President Donald Trump's first term, Craig McLean was the acting chief scientist at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. It runs the National Weather Service, which issues hurricane warnings.
Dorian has been pummeling the Bahamas for a day and a half.
On a Sunday, the Weather Service forecasted the storm to move up the Atlantic coast. President Trump tweeted that Alabama was in the storm's path, but it wasn't. 20 minutes later, the National Weather Service in Alabama accurately tweeted, "Alabama will not see any impacts from Dorian." That contradicted the president. By Wednesday, with Dorian still approaching, Trump held up a 7-day-old map altered with a black marker, making it look like Alabama was in the hurricane's path. The controversy became known as Sharpie-Gate.
That was the original chart. And you see it was going to hit not only Florida, but Georgia. It could have was going toward the Gulf.
By Friday, without McLean's knowledge, the leadership at NOAA released a statement backing Trump and criticizing the work of the weather forecasters.
To have a political process unplug the public's trust, that got me stirred. That gave me a sense of rage.
McLean demanded investigations. They concluded that the statement was driven by external political pressure through a request from the White House then acting chief of staff, and that Neil Jacobs, the head of NOAA, who's been nominated again, violated NOAA's scientific integrity policy. McLean requested NOAA's top leaders acknowledge the investigative findings. Shortly after, he was relieved of his position. Jacobs has not responded to our request for a comment, and a spokesperson for NOAA says it does not comment on nominations.
The blanket that was given to me by my team.
McLean stayed on with NOAA in another position and eventually retired. But big picture, NOAA's science is about more than hurricane warnings. It underpins how corporations and insurance companies predict the ever-growing risks of climate disasters and helps farmers choose the best time to plant as weather patterns shift. But Project 2025, which has served as a roadmap for the new administration, calls on Trump to break up NOAA, accusing it of being one of the main drivers of the climate change alarm industry. We reached out to the Trump White House, but it did not respond to our questions. And during the nomination hearings for Howard Lutnick, Trump's pick to lead the Commerce Department, which oversees NOAA, he said he does not support breaking it up.
Project 2025 is saying NOAA's alarmist.
Well, we're required by law to give the full picture. And if there's a reason to not be alarmist, what is that? What we're seeing is alarming, is very alarming.
McLean says we should all be alarmed by any threats to the integrity of the science that supports what we know about our changing climate.
Going through that again is very concerning to me.
For CBS Saturday Morning, David Schechter, Washington.